The announcement came without warning. The CEO stepped into the open workspace and raised her voice just enough for every department to hear. She declared that the patents you had developed over years of careful research now belonged to the company. The statement carried confidence, but no reference to any legal document. People stopped typing. Chairs turned. A few employees exchanged glances, unsure if they should pretend to keep working or witness what was unfolding. Before the silence settled, she added that your employment was terminated. The delivery was sharp and performed with the intention of creating spectacle. She wanted dominance to be visible. You observed the moment with a calm that confused the room. The CEO expected outrage. She expected an argument. She expected a reaction that would justify the performance she had prepared. None of it arrived. Instead, you studied her posture. You studied the absence of paperwork in her hand. You studied the tightening expressions of the managers standing behind her who understood enough about contracts to know something was missing. You allowed the scene to complete itself without resistance. At your age, you understand that responding emotionally only enlarges a moment that deserves no energy. You walked toward the exit with measured steps. Not a word, not a gesture, not a single attempt to recover dignity, because nothing had been lost. What appeared to be defeat was simply the beginning of a transition she could not anticipate. Colleagues moved aside as you passed, sensing that the silence surrounding you carried intention rather than shock. Power spoken without paperwork is only noise. The moment you reached the elevator, the building shifted into its usual routine of assumptions. People believed the silence around you meant defeat. A few whispered that no one walks away from a public dismissal without carrying humiliation on their shoulders. You noticed how quickly observers created a narrative for you, as if the absence of noise confirmed the end of your influence. None of these assumptions troubled you. They revealed more about the culture than your situation. Security followed procedure and escorted you toward the exit. The guard avoided eye contact, unsure whether to appear sympathetic or strictly professional. His presence did not bother you. He was not part of the decision. Years of experience teach you that structure, not individuals, shapes moments like these. You stepped outside the restricted zone with the same calm you carried in the meeting room. A few minutes later, your phone vibrated with a message from Human Resources. It was short and generated automatically. It informed you that your company access was revoked and that your belongings would be collected. The message lacked any sign of human consideration. It demonstrated the speed at which a corporation can switch from gratitude to dismissal without a second thought. Inside her office, the CEO felt victorious. She believed the walkout confirmed her authority. She believed your silence was surrender. She believed the situation was resolved. What she never understood was that your departure had nothing to do with emotion. It was a structural exit. You stepped away with intention, not weakness. You created distance to allow the truth to work on your behalf. I did not leave angry. I left aligned. When you returned home, you did not spend a single minute replaying the confrontation. You opened the folder that contained the documents the CEO never asked to see. Years of work were organized in precise order. Filing dates, renewal confirmations, proof of personal ownership through a holding entity created long before the company existed. Every detail was clear, dated, and traceable. Nothing in that folder depended on the approval or interpretation of anyone in the building you had just left. You reviewed the assignment clauses next. Each one specified that your research contributions at the company were separate from the patents you had developed independently. The language was firm and written by someone who understood how power shifts when creation meets corporate ambition. These clauses were the reason the buyer valued the acquisition. They were also the reason the CEO had tried to claim ownership in front of an audience rather than in a formal meeting. You understood why her announcement carried no legal effect. A public statement does not transfer intellectual property. Ownership is not performance. Ownership is paperwork, signatures, timelines, and the ability to prove continuity. Her confidence could echo across a crowded office, but it could never rewrite documents filed with national authorities. As you closed the folder, you reflected on the importance of silence. Silence is not weakness when paired with structure. Silence prevents emotional mistakes. Silence forces the situation to reveal its true nature. Those who live by noise expect conflict. Those who understand systems know when to step back and let the record speak. Experience does not argue. It documents. 24 hours after your departure, the board gathered for what they believed would be a routine update on the acquisition. The buyer requested an urgent call. No greetings. No discussion about timelines. The lead negotiator asked a single question that cut through every layer of confidence inside the room. He wanted to know who legally owned the patents that supported the projected valuation of $350 million. The board members exchanged quiet looks, assuming the CEO had handled this matter carefully. The CEO repeated the same claim she had made during your dismissal. She presented it with certainty, expecting the buyer to accept her authority as fact. For several seconds, the call remained silent. Then the buyer informed the board that their research teams had reviewed the public filings. The patents were registered to your personal holding entity, not to the company. Nothing in the database supported the CEO's announcement. The documents did not align with her public performance. The atmosphere shifted instantly. A visible tension filled the room as directors understood the implications. The entire negotiation relied on verified ownership. Without it, the valuation collapsed. Private messages began to circulate between board members. The CEO felt the shift and attempted to continue speaking, but the momentum of the call had already moved away from her. Authority dissolves quickly when facts cannot support it. The buyer ended the call by requesting clarification in writing. The board realized that a single sentence spoken publicly had now placed the entire deal at risk. It was no longer a matter of reputation. It was a matter of compliance. Markets do not care about titles. They care about signatures. The board met early the next morning, hoping the situation could be repaired before the buyer reacted. They prepared statements, reviewed old agreements, and searched for any clause that could justify the CEO's public claim. Nothing supported her decision. As they debated internally, a new message appeared in the shared inbox. It was a formal notice from the buyer. The tone was polite, almost clinical, and it requested confirmation that the patent holder had agreed to transfer ownership. Until that confirmation arrived, all negotiations would be suspended. The board attempted to respond immediately, but every document they reviewed pointed back to your independent entity. The more they searched, the clearer it became that the CEO had acted without the foundation she claimed to possess. The buyer expected legal certainty, not verbal declarations. Without proof, the acquisition could not continue. Silence filled the boardroom as the directors realized the scale of the damage. An hour later, the final message arrived. It was short and left no room for interpretation. The buyer was withdrawing from the acquisition. There were no accusations and no dramatic statements. There was only a clear explanation that unresolved ownership concerns made the agreement impossible. With that message, $350 million vanished from the company's future as if it had never existed. No one shouted. No one attempted to negotiate further. The board understood that the buyer was not interested in conflict. They were interested in certainty, and certainty was missing. The CEO sat motionless, confronted by the consequences of her own performance. Money leaves faster than respect. The CEO remained in the conference room long after the directors had left. Her phone lay on the table, screen turned upward, waiting for an explanation that never appeared. She refreshed her inbox repeatedly, hoping the buyer would reconsider. The silence settled around her with a weight she could not ignore. For the first time since taking her position, she felt the absence of control. No updates came from legal. No statement arrived to justify her announcement. Every department that once moved at her command now stepped back, unwilling to carry responsibility for her decision. She attempted to call the legal department, but the line rang without an answer. The attorneys were reviewing documents, not rescuing interpretations. They understood the risk of defending a claim that had no foundation. She tried contacting individual board members next. Some declined the call. Others simply let it pass. Their distance was intentional. They had witnessed the consequences and no longer wished to be connected to her leadership. As the morning progressed, the silence deepened. The screens on her desk displayed reports of the collapsed valuation. Departments were already preparing internal notes to adjust projections for the year. Beyond the walls of her office, employees moved quietly, aware that the atmosphere had shifted. The authority she used to project so confidently now carried no substance. Every decision she had made in public relied on the assumption that no one would challenge her. The buyer had challenged her with one simple request, and the truth had answered. She sat back, finally understanding that the damage was not caused by the withdrawal of a deal. The damage was caused by her own performance. She did not lose the deal. She exposed herself. In the days that followed, the company moved into a phase of controlled urgency. The board scheduled a series of private meetings to determine how the acquisition had collapsed so quickly. Each session focused on documents, timelines, and the decisions that had led to the public announcement. You were never contacted. Your presence was not requested. The clarity of the records made explanations unnecessary. The board reviewed everything without emotion, aware that the buyer's withdrawal had created a financial vacuum that could not be ignored. Internally, a quiet investigation began. Legal teams reconstructed the sequence of events and compared it with the CEO's statements. Every detail pointed to the same conclusion. The issue was not the patents. The issue was leadership. Reports circulated between departments with a tone of discretion. No one wanted a public scandal, but the truth had to be recorded accurately for compliance. The CEO's authority, once displayed with confidence, now appeared fragile when examined through documentation instead of performance. By the end of the week, a reshuffle was announced. It was presented as a strategic realignment for the future of the company. Those who understood the internal structure recognized it immediately as a clean removal of unstable leadership. No accusations were shared. No dramatic statements were made. The company transitioned quietly, as professional environments often do when they must protect long-term stability. During all of this, you remained absent. You did not comment on the situation. You did not answer messages seeking your perspective. You allowed the system to correct itself without involvement. Experience had already taught you the value of silence when facts are sufficient. I did not need revenge. Structure handled it. If you are watching this and you are past the age where noise impresses you, then this message is for you. You already know that experience does not announce itself. It does not rush. It does not compete for attention in crowded meetings. It stands quietly at the back of the room, waiting for the moment when clarity becomes more valuable than appearance. Experience is not expensive. Ignorance is. The cost of a decision made without reading the documents is far greater than the cost of asking the right person a simple question. Many leaders forget this. They confuse confidence with competence. They believe volume replaces structure. They discover the truth only when consequences arrive without warning. Never argue ownership emotionally. Arguments drain energy. Structure preserves it. If your work is documented, you do not need to fight for recognition. The record speaks in a tone that arrogance cannot imitate. The file is stronger than the performance. The signature is stronger than the announcement. Never waste time correcting someone who has not read. People who refuse to learn from the page will eventually learn from the result. Let the process guide them. Let the consequences educate them. You do not owe explanations to those who ignore facts that are available to them. If you are over 50, trust the value of what time has taught you. You have patterns, memory, and a sense of proportion that younger voices have not earned yet. Use that quietly. Use it precisely. Use it without fear. People who fire experience often discover too late that it was holding the deal together.